Emily Carter, the cherished daughter of the Carter family, had always been the envy of the elite. Engaged to Luke Anderson, the dashing heir of the prestigious Anderson lineage, her life seemed destined for a fairy tale ending. Yet, everything shattered in an instant. At a high-profile gathering filled with the Golden Circle's elite, Luke stood before the crowd and confessed his love, not for Emily, but for Sophia Walters, a 38-year-old woman with disabilities, who was pregnant. The confession sent ripples through the room. Luke's eyes shone with conviction as he dropped to one knee, proposing to Sophia in front of everyone. Emily was frozen in place, her heart breaking as laughter and whispers filled the room. The humiliation was unbearable. The man she had trusted, the man she had believed in, had chosen someone else and turned her life into a public spectacle. But Emily, though hurt, was no victim. Swallowing the lump in her throat, she stood tall. Her voice, calm but resolute, cut through the noise. If you've chosen her, then I choose freedom. I, Emily Carter, hereby end our engagement. Her words stunned the crowd into silence. Luke blinked, as though realizing for the first time that Emily might not be the weak, helpless girl he had taken her for. Without looking back, Emily turned and walked out of the room, her head held high. Betrayed and broken, Emily vowed to never chase after someone unworthy of her love again. Little did Luke know, Emily's story was far from over, and her rise would leave him drowning in regret. The grand ballroom buzzed with excitement as the elite of the Golden Circle gathered for the engagement party. Emily Carter, draped in a shimmering silver gown, stood by Luke Anderson's side, her smile masking the turmoil within. Tonight was supposed to be the celebration of their union, but an uneasy feeling gnawed at her. As the room fell silent, Luke took the microphone, his confident demeanor commanding attention. Emily's heart raced, expecting him to officially announce their engagement. Instead, his words pierced through her like a dagger. Tonight, I want to speak my truth, Luke began, his voice steady but devoid of emotion. I can no longer continue this engagement. I've fallen in love with someone else, Sophia Walters. A wave of gasps and murmurs spread across the room as Sophia, a woman twice Emily's age and visibly pregnant, stepped forward. Luke's gaze softened as he addressed her, dropping to one knee. Sophia, you are my true love. Will you marry me? Emily's world crumbled. The whispers around her felt like thunderous roars. Her humiliation was complete, but she refused to let it consume her. Summoning every ounce of strength, she stepped forward, her voice unwavering. Luke Anderson, she said, her tone icy, you've made your choice, and now I'll make mine. I, Emily Carter, sever all ties with you and your family. The room fell into stunned silence. Emily turned, her silver gown shimmering as she walked away with her head held high. The betrayal had stung deeply, but she had reclaimed her dignity. That night, Emily's declaration wasn't just a response to heartbreak, it was the first step in rewriting her story. And the Golden Circle was about to witness a transformation they would never forget. The atmosphere in the ballroom was electric. Emily's bold declaration had left the elite stunned. Whispers filled the room, but Emily didn't falter. She refused to crumble under the weight of betrayal and humiliation. Instead, she scanned the crowd, her gaze landing on a man seated in the far corner, a man whose presence radiated power and defiance. James Fong, known as the Northeastern Prince, was an outsider to the Golden Circle. His reputation was that of a maverick, a man who cared little for the norms of high society. With his sharp features and a smirk that hinted at danger, he seemed entirely out of place among the polished elites. Without hesitation, Emily strode toward him, her heels clicking against the marble floor. The room watched in disbelief as she stopped in front of James and, with unwavering confidence, sat on his lap. James Fong, she said, her voice steady but daring, kiss me. The air froze. Gasps erupted as James's smirk widened. Amused by her audacity, he didn't hesitate. Leaning in, he pressed his lips to hers, sealing a moment that would ripple through the golden circle for years to come. When Emily pulled back, her chin tilted defiantly, she addressed the room. "If Luke Anderson can throw me away like a used toy, I'll show him that I don't need him, or anyone like him." James chuckled, his arm casually wrapping around her waist. "Now this," he said, his voice rich with amusement, "is going to be interesting." In one bold move, Emily had done more than reclaim her dignity. She had found an unexpected ally in James Fong, a man unafraid to challenge the elite. And together, they were about to rewrite the rules of high society. The Carter estate was abuzz with whispers of scandal after the dramatic events of the engagement party. Emily had shocked everyone by aligning herself with James Fong, the infamous Northeastern prince. But no one could have predicted what James would do next. Just days after the fiasco, a fleet of helicopters appeared in the skies above the Carter mansion. Their arrival was announced with a thunderous roar, and as they descended, the estate's grand lawn became a spectacle. Each helicopter carried a cargo of gold, stacks of cash, and keys to luxury cars. James stepped out of one of the helicopters, dressed sharply in a tailored suit. His confidence was palpable as he strode up to Emily's grandfather, the esteemed patriarch of the Carter family. With a deep bow, he extended a small velvet box, revealing a diamond so massive it seemed unreal. "I've come to ask for Emily's hand in marriage," James declared, his voice strong and unwavering. "I promise to give her the life she deserves, a life of respect, love, and freedom." The Carter family exchanged uncertain glances. James Fong was an outsider, a rogue by elite standards. Yet, his sincerity was undeniable, and the extravagance of his proposal left them speechless. Emily, standing to the side, was equally stunned. She couldn't help but admire James's boldness, though she wasn't sure what to make of his intentions. After a tense silence, her grandfather finally spoke. "If Emily agrees, then so do I." James turned to Emily, his gaze softening. "Say yes, Emily. Let me show you how much you're truly worth." Though hesitant, Emily nodded. The proposal wasn't just a grand gesture, it was the beginning of a partnership that would challenge everything the Golden Circle believed in. The Carter estate was still buzzing from James Feng's audacious proposal. Emily hadn't even fully processed the whirlwind events when James arrived at her home the next morning, his energy as relentless as ever. "Get dressed. We're leaving," James announced, his tone leaving no room for argument. Emily blinked in confusion. "What are you talking about?" "We're getting married. Today." Before Emily could protest, James had already arranged everything. A sleek convoy of luxury cars waited outside, and within minutes, Emily found herself whisked away to the Civil Affairs Bureau. "You're insane," she muttered, glaring at him. James only smirked. "Maybe. But I don't waste time when I know what I want." Despite her reluctance, Emily couldn't deny the strange sense of safety she felt with him. He was unpredictable and bold, but his actions always seemed to center on her. At the bureau, James had everything prepared. The paperwork was expedited, and the staff, clearly under his influence, treated the couple like royalty. When it came time to sign the marriage certificate, Emily hesitated. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, her voice softer now. James leaned closer, his tone surprisingly gentle. "Emily, I'm not just doing this to make a point. I meant what I said. I want to protect you, to give you a life where no one dares to disrespect you again." With a deep breath, Emily signed her name. The moment felt surreal, but as James took her hand, a part of her felt like this might be the beginning of something extraordinary. By the time they left the bureau, James's grin was brighter than the morning sun. "You're my wife now, Emily. And I promise, you'll never regret it." The Golden Circle was abuzz with gossip about Emily's sudden marriage to James Fong. Meanwhile, Luke Anderson, unaware of the brewing storm, planned an extravagant engagement banquet for Sophia Walters. Determined to flaunt his new love, Luke spared no expense, inviting the elite to a grand event at one of the city's most luxurious venues. Word of Luke's plans reached James, and he saw an opportunity he couldn't resist. "If he wants to put on a show, let's give him one to remember," James said, a mischievous glint in his eyes. On the same night as Luke's engagement, James organized a celebration for Emily. But this wasn't just any celebration, it was an event designed to outshine Luke's in every possible way. The banquet hall was transformed into a paradise of luxury. The entrance alone featured 108 gleaming luxury cars lined up in perfect formation. Inside, the centerpiece was the world's largest pink diamond, displayed in a custom glass case. Every detail screamed opulence, from the gourmet dishes crafted by world-class chefs to the live orchestra that played beneath a cascading crystal chandelier. As the evening unfolded, guests couldn't help but compare the two events. While Luke's banquet boasted grandeur, it paled in comparison to the sheer spectacle James had orchestrated. The talk of the night wasn't Luke and Sophia's engagement but James and Emily's celebration. What truly stole the show, however, was James's toast. Standing beside Emily, he raised his glass and said, "To Emily, the strongest woman I know. She deserves nothing less than the best, and I intend to give her exactly that." Meanwhile, at Luke's banquet, things began to unravel. Guests whispered about Emily's new life, about how James had eclipsed Luke in every way. The envy in Luke's eyes was unmistakable, but it was nothing compared to the pang of regret that gnawed at him. As the night ended, it was clear to everyone, James had not only won the battle of celebrations but also solidified his place as Emily's unwavering partner. Luke, on the other hand, was left with the bitter realization that he had lost something far more valuable than he'd ever understood. The night of Luke and Sophia's engagement ceremony was meant to be their moment, their grand entrance into the world of high society as a couple. But fate had other plans. The skies, once clear and calm, suddenly darkened, and the torrential rainstorm began to pour, turning what was meant to be a perfect evening into a disaster. Guests huddled under umbrellas, trying to shield themselves from the relentless downpour, as the event, initially planned for the grand outdoor gardens, had to be moved indoors. The mood shifted from celebration to frustration as soaked guests trudged through the mud, struggling to maintain their composure in the face of the storm. The beautiful garden, once vibrant with flowers and string lights, now looked like a flooded wasteland. But across town, at the Carter estate, Emily and James's celebration was unfolding in stark contrast. Inside a beautifully decorated ballroom, everything was perfect. Not a single drop of rain had managed to find its way into the venue, and the elegant decor sparkled beneath the soft, warm lighting. The orchestra continued to play, the laughter was unbroken, and every detail was meticulously in place. The contrast between the two events could not have been more obvious. While Luke and Sophia were forced to make do with the aftermath of a ruined event, James's grand celebration carried on without a hitch. As the night wore on, the storm outside raged on, but inside James's venue, the atmosphere was vibrant and full of life. Emily, standing beside him, couldn't help but notice the difference. She looked at James, whose calm and confident demeanor contrasted sharply with Luke's frantic efforts to salvage his ruined evening. "I told you we'd be fine," James said with a grin as he handed her a glass of champagne. Emily smiled, her thoughts swirling with a mix of emotions. She had never imagined a day like this, Luke, the man who had once been her fiancé, now standing amidst the ruins of what should have been his triumphant moment. And here she was, with James, a man who had shown her not only the power of loyalty but also the strength of his unwavering support. As the night unfolded, the storm outside seemed to reflect the turmoil within Luke's heart, while Emily's newfound sense of freedom and confidence stood tall amidst the chaos. It was clear now, her life, and her future, would never again be defined by Luke's decisions. The rainstorm had ruined his evening, but it had strengthened her resolve. The aftermath of the dramatic events surrounding Luke, Emily, and James had rippled through the Golden Circle, leaving the elite society divided. Luke's engagement to Sophia had been intended to be a symbol of his rise to power, but the way he had treated Emily, and his inability to handle the fallout, had changed everything. At first, the Golden Circle had been skeptical of James' Fong. As an outsider from the Northeast, his reputation was less than stellar, and his sudden involvement with Emily Carter seemed more like a calculated move than a genuine gesture. The elites had questioned his motives, whispering among themselves about his audacity and boldness. But as time passed and James continued to prove himself, their opinions began to shift. James's resilience and determination were undeniable. Every time Luke made a move to reassert his position, James countered with something more extravagant, more thoughtful, more daring. The lavish engagement celebration, the whirlwind proposal, and his unwavering support for Emily were all part of his strategy, not just to win her heart but to challenge the old order. But it wasn't just James's wealth or grand gestures that earned him respect, it was his authenticity. He never tried to be someone he wasn't, and his relationship with Emily was one based on mutual respect. James's treatment of her was different from what the Golden Circle had seen from Luke. Where Luke had been dismissive and arrogant, James was attentive and considerate. Emily, too, had changed. No longer the meek, overlooked woman in the background, she had grown into someone who demanded respect, someone who had the power to decide her own future. Slowly, the whispers about James began to fade, replaced by admiration for his unyielding spirit. He had, in a way, forced the Golden Circle to re-examine its own values, reminding them that strength didn't always come from heritage or wealth but from character and integrity. Emily, once seen as a victim in a doomed engagement, had become a symbol of resilience. Her courage in standing up for herself, her willingness to walk away from the life she had been forced into, had inspired many. She wasn't just the daughter of a powerful family, she was a woman who had reclaimed her life from the hands of those who thought they could control her. As the Golden Circle's elites began to see the true power of Emily and James's partnership, they realized they were witnessing the rise of something new, something that would challenge their long-held beliefs and redefine the dynamics of their world. As weeks passed since Emily's unexpected marriage to James, the Golden Circle began to turn its attention away from Luke and Sophia. The lavish engagement celebration, once meant to be a symbol of Luke's triumph, had faded into the background of a much larger narrative. While Luke and Sophia tried to navigate the complexities of their newfound relationship, cracks began to appear in their carefully curated image. Sophia, though once the symbol of Luke's devotion, started to show signs of strain. The constant attention from the media, the societal pressure to maintain an image of perfection, and the whispers about her relationship with Luke had begun to take their toll. She had always been a private person, and now she found herself under an unrelenting spotlight. The criticisms from the elite were harsh, many questioned whether she was truly the right match for Luke or if she had simply been an impulsive choice made out of pity. In private, Luke began to see the consequences of his decisions. The woman he had thought would bring him peace was now plagued by insecurities. She struggled with the expectations of being the perfect partner for him, and her disabilities, once overlooked by Luke's infatuation, became a source of tension between them. The love he had promised her seemed more fragile by the day. Meanwhile, James and Emily's relationship continued to flourish. Every public appearance, every gesture of support from James, seemed to highlight the stark contrast between what Emily had lost and what she had gained. With James by her side, Emily was no longer the heartbroken fiancée of a man who had betrayed her. She was a woman with a future that had nothing to do with Luke's empty promises. Luke, once so certain of his place at the top, now found himself questioning everything. His relationship with Sophia was deteriorating, and his professional life began to suffer as well. The whispers in the golden circle about his failure to maintain control over his personal life were beginning to affect his business dealings. Those who had once supported him now kept their distance, seeing him as a man who had lost his grip on both his heart and his ambitions. As Emily and James continued to build their legacy together, Luke's fall from grace became inevitable. The once proud prince of the Golden Circle was now left grappling with the reality of his choices, the love he had taken for granted slipping away, and the power he had relied on crumbling under the weight of his own mistakes. As the days turned into weeks, Emily and James's relationship deepened, and so did their commitment to rebuilding what had once been Emily's family legacy. The Carter family, once known for its power and influence, had been on the verge of collapse after Emily's broken engagement to Luke. But with James's unwavering support and their combined efforts, they began to restore the honor and prosperity that had been lost. James, with his audacity and vision, proved to be the perfect partner for Emily. While Luke had been focused on maintaining his status, James was determined to create something greater, something that would not just elevate the Carter family but also secure their place in the elite circles on their own terms. He didn't need to rely on old traditions or wealth alone, he relied on innovation, respect, and loyalty. Emily, too, had undergone a transformation. No longer the fragile, heartbroken woman who had been discarded by Luke, she now stood strong as the head of the Carter family, guiding its future with confidence. She had learned to trust herself again, to believe in her own worth, and to embrace the power of her own voice. Their partnership was one based on mutual respect and a shared vision. Where Emily had once been an object of competition between Luke and James, she was now an equal, a force in her own right. Together, they created a new foundation for the Carter family, one that was built not on privilege, but on hard work, integrity, and a commitment to each other. The media began to take notice of their rise. Their story, once one of heartbreak and betrayal, was now one of triumph. Emily's name was no longer associated with Luke's betrayal but with her own resilience and the bright future she had forged with James. The Golden Circle, once skeptical of James, now recognized him as a true leader, a man who had earned his place not by blood or wealth, but by the strength of his character. Luke, watching from the sidelines as Emily and James thrived, was left with nothing but regret. The empire he had once believed was his to control was slipping away, and Emily was no longer the woman he had taken for granted. She had found her true partner, and together they were building something far more powerful than anything Luke had ever imagined. Emily and James had not only rebuilt her family's legacy, they had created a future that was entirely their own, one where love, respect, and determination would be the foundation for everything they achieved. Their new beginning was just the start of something even greater. Luke's world had become a shadow of what it once was. His relationship with Sophia, which had seemed like the answer to everything, was crumbling under the weight of reality. The pressures of public life, combined with Sophia's insecurities and the constant judgment from the elite, had left him feeling more isolated than ever. What had once been a triumphant affair now felt like a constant struggle to keep up appearances. As he watched Emily and James's rise, a bitter realization began to take root in Luke's heart. He had thought that Sophia would be his escape, that by rejecting Emily, he would have the life he always dreamed of. But instead, he found himself alone, questioning his decisions. Emily, the woman he had once taken for granted, had transformed into something he could never have anticipated, a symbol of strength, resilience, and success. Sophia, unable to cope with the constant scrutiny and judgment, began to pull away from Luke. The pressures of their relationship, amplified by the elitist circles they were trying to navigate, became too much for her. She sought solace in distance, eventually breaking away from Luke entirely, leaving him alone to face the consequences of his choices. Meanwhile, Emily and James's relationship flourished. They continued to build their legacy together, their love becoming stronger with each passing day. Emily had found a partner who valued her, respected her, and stood beside her through thick and thin. Luke, on the other hand, had lost everything, his love, his status, and his place in the world he had once ruled. As Emily and James thrived, Luke was left to watch from afar, burdened by the regret of his decisions. He had lost the one person who had truly mattered, and in his pursuit of power, he had gained nothing but emptiness. Emily and James had proven to the world that their love wasn't just a fleeting romance, but a powerful partnership capable of reshaping everything they touched. Their bond had become a symbol of resilience, strength, and the undeniable truth that love, when nurtured with respect and trust, could overcome any obstacle. As they worked together to restore the Carter family legacy, their efforts began to pay off in ways no one had anticipated. The once fading family name now stood for something more than just wealth and influence. It represented hard work, loyalty, and the unwavering determination to build a brighter future. Emily, once seen as a victim of betrayal, had risen above her past and become a woman of power, not just in name but in action. James, ever supportive and dedicated, continued to stand by her side, proving to the world that he was more than just a man of wealth and status. His love for Emily was genuine, and together, they created a life that was their own, free from the expectations of the elite circles that had once tried to define them. They built something real, something lasting, that was far more meaningful than anything Luke had ever offered. Luke, left to watch from the sidelines, came to understand the true cost of his actions. His once prized position in the Golden Circle had crumbled, and the love he had cast aside in favor of ambition and status was now flourishing in ways he could never have imagined. Emily and James's love was more than just a victory for them, it was a lesson to everyone who had ever doubted the power of genuine love and loyalty. In the end, Emily and James's legacy was not just about wealth or power, it was about love that stood the test of time and the strength to overcome even the deepest betrayals.